Welcome back to Aaron's Tech Corner. Aaron here, and today I'm going to show off something a little bit fun. This is a blast from the past. I have a habit of collecting old computers. This was just something that I remember seeing when I was younger and thought, boy, that is really cool. No way could I afford one back then because these were like $3,000 or $4,000 back in the 90s, just to give you some context. But this is a Toshiba Libretto 50CT. And it's what people like to say is it's a full-featured computer, and it's about the same size as a VHS tape, is what people say. Unfortunately, I don't have a VHS tape, but I do have a newer MacBook Air here for reference. Here's a here's a MacBook Air that takes the whole frame up, and here's the Libretto, which just kind of sits on top of it, right? Obviously not as thin, but extremely small, which was kind of cool. It was mainly kind of targeted at executives. It was a machine that was just meant to be ultra portable, and you could take it on a plane, in a car, whatever. So let's just dive into this here. And what you can see is I have a Libretto 50CT. That's one of the lower models. This one has a 75 megahertz Pentium processor. And it also has, I believe this one has 24 megabytes, not gigabytes, megabytes. We're talking a long time ago here, of memory. And I believe it supports like a 32 or higher. And it was kind of designed in the Windows 95 era. So it obviously can run Win95, or in my case, I put Win98 on it just because it's a little bit easier to deal with. On the right hand, you can see this is a 3.5-inch floppy drive with a PCMCIA card here. So this thing's almost as big as the machine, right? And you can just shove these in here. And then now you have a floppy drive, which is very useful when you're loading Windows or drivers or just about anything back in the day. I think some people have found CD-ROM drives and network cards and things that work with them. And I've done a bunch of mods to this guy, so I'll just kind of get into this here. We're going to first start with the first mod, which I'm just kind of showing the bottom of the machine here. It's pretty basic, has a kind of a modern little release door for the battery. This is the dock connector, and these machines have this connector here, so you can put a dock that you can dock this machine to and have all your ports broken out, or a small little port replicator that screws onto the back, which I actually don't have, and I wish I did, because unfortunately, as you can see, there is nothing on this machine in terms of ports because it's so tiny. And for the time, that was super impressive and hard to do. So yeah, you can plug the dock into this, and then you'd have the ability to have like parallel port, serial port, some other ports. This is where the hard drive is stored. And, yeah, that's just kind of the basics. So let's just dive into the first modification. The stock battery at this many years of age is long since dead. So I actually, this was what the stock one looks like. It was a 10-volt battery, 1200 milliamps, so not much capacity. Used Sony lithium-ion batteries, and they're an odd size that really you can't find anymore. And some people put smaller size in there, but luckily capacity has increased, so you can actually do that. But what I actually was able to do is I found somebody else who put modern 18650 batteries in there. So if you're familiar with an 18650 cell, it's a standard size lithium battery that's used in just about everything. And just here's one here, just so you can see. And these things actually almost fit perfectly in this stock battery. But when you kind of look, it's like they're just a little bit too wide. So this thing just wouldn't quite bolt up. It's just so close, but yet so far away. So luckily, I noticed after a few years later, recently I guess, is that people have been doing more mods to these things. I actually bought this from a friend about 6 or so years ago for like $60. Back when they were pretty affordable still. But there weren't a whole lot of people doing things with them, and 3D printing was pretty new, so there wasn't a whole lot of mods out there. But this is pretty cool. This is a 3D printed case that I printed in a gray And I sanded it, but I kind of intend to find a paint match for the case, but it's not too terrible looking right now. But this is the original guts of the charging board that goes in here. And there are 3 of these 18650 cells in here. And that gives this thing up to 3,300 milliamps of power, which is like almost 3 times the original battery capacity. So this guy, in theory, should be able to run like 4.5, 5 hours now. And so here, you can see it just slots right in just like a normal battery. And if we kind of look at it the side, you can see that this case was designed just to stick out a little bit beyond the factory. They did make an extended battery too that actually brings the Libretto's front lower half out like this far. It had like 6 or so cells. So, but even then, if you had the extended original battery, it's still not as powerful as this guy. So I like this. It's a good balance. Let's crack it open. And now you're probably like, hey, shut up and open the thing. All right, so let's do that. All right. Pretty basic laptop, right? You've got, that's like a 6-inch LCD, and it's a CFL2 backlit, not LED backlit, not IPS. No, it's not a fast refresh. This is old tech, so it's not a great screen, but for the back in the day, it actually was a pretty amazing screen. And then actually what's really probably honestly one of the best parts of this machine is this kind of small full-size keyboard. Like it's really impressive, and it feels good to type on too. Like you could actually make a modern little tiny computer with this keyboard, and I'd be very happy. Pointing device, that was always a trick on small machines. Like, what do you do with that? You know, some machines have little trackballs. This has like a little eraser track point, which was kind of popular with IBMs and Lenovo's. But you would just move your finger around on this and it tracks your motion. And then the mouse buttons are on the lid. You got the left and the right button. And then of course you got the power button at the top and the indicators. On the side here, you'll see actually another mod. And this is pretty cool. I found this one online as well. It's a 3D printable insert, but that's a USB-C port in the charging section there. It doesn't pass data, so it doesn't do anything with that. But essentially, I have the original charging brick, which works pretty good, but it, you know, it's fairly big and bulky, and we're in the modern day and age, and hey, why not have a modern solution? And basically what you do is you install one of these little guys, which is a USB-C power distribution trigger board. And all that basically is saying is when you plug a USB-C connector in, or you know, charging cable and charger into this, these can be set to output one of the standard voltages that USB-C provides. USB-C with power distribution, depending on like the spec, can provide, I believe it's like 5 volts, 9 volts, 12 volts, 15 volts, and 20 volts. And for us, we need 15 volts. You can see on the side, it's 15 volts. And this is exactly what this guy does, which is pretty cool. So with 15 volts out, you can just plug one of those chargers right up in there, and it will charge the whole unit just like it should, and it will run off the thing as well. So super convenient. Let's go ahead and power this guy up. I'm gonna warn you, you know, these aren't exactly blistering fast, but for the time, a Pentium 75 was pretty awesome. I'm gonna turn off this light too because it's really hard to see this display. But there you go, Windows 98. Now another thing you can tell too is this thing's pretty darn quiet. And the reason why it's quiet is I actually replaced the factory hard drive with a compact flash card, and that's a very common mod. So that basically, yeah, makes the machine a lot quieter, as well as just saves a lot of power. But essentially I threw a 2 gigabyte compact flash to 2.5-inch IDE hard drive adapter in there. And that's something I actually did that probably about 5 or 6 years ago, like right when I bought the machine. That's like the first thing I did because it just made sense. And I plugged the compact flash into one of my other PCs, formatted it, copied the Windows 98 install files to a folder on there, and then just ran the install on this machine in DOS, which made it a lot easier because I didn't have to go find a stack of like 25 floppy disks, and I didn't have to do any crazy things. As you can see, it's booted up. Let's go to the task manager here, which is amazing. Like, you know, the core features of Windows haven't changed too much. I'm lying here because apparently, yeah, there is no this 98. It's not NT based, so yeah, no task manager like we're used to. Let's see if we can find the system info thing. I don't even know where that is. As I was going to say, I haven't used this, and I haven't used Windows 95 or 98, that generation, in so long. System tools. System information. Here we go. All right, let's get in here. Yep. Genuine Pentium processor with 24 megs of RAM. And I've got about 993 megs of 2 gigs free, roughly. So quite a bit of space. I don't have really much on here. But for fun, I put Doom on here because, you know, you can run Doom on anything. And of course you need Doom. I mean, I know some people, you overclock these and you can play Quake. You can play DOS games. There's a lot of cool things you can do with these guys. Well, let's bring that up here. There we go. So the not so fun part is that without the port replicator, I can't plug a mouse into this thing. So I have to basically control. If I wanted to use a mouse, I would have to essentially use this nub, which, I mean, but I believe, you know, I don't think Doom actually used the mouse. I don't think that was a thing until Quake, but you can see here, I can just run around a little bit, but yeah, kind of fun. It's not the most particularly speedy. It sounds pretty good though. So this is kind of a really fun little machine that, you know, you could use to play some retro games, especially if you get the port replicator and you hook up an external mouse, monitor, and keyboard. You know, a little Pentium 75 is not too bad of a machine. Alrighty. It's hard to do that one-handed, so we're going to quit out. Oh, I think maybe I wasn't even playing. It was just in the demo there. Alright. Let's quit to DOS, which is Windows. And there you go. So, you know, there you have it. Yeah, the Libretto 50CT with a bunch of small-time mods. The other thing I just did recently was install this new CMOS battery. And yeah, I think I'm pretty done with most of the things on here. I'm going to load more software on it, obviously, and to try and get a port replicator so I can use it. And you know, if I ever find any like screen mods to make the screen, you know, more modern, I would totally do that. But I'm going to try and keep it fairly stock. I'm very happy with this now that it actually works, you know, on battery, which, you know, I've had it for 6 years. Never had a battery, so it's always been chained to the wall, which is really annoying for a tiny laptop like this. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. And, you know, you can find these things online still. They are very, very brittle. So I'm lucky in that this is in really good shape. But these plastics, you barely breathe on them and look at them, they shatter. And that is typical for something this age, especially with ABS plastics. They weren't the best back in the 90s. And even earlier. But there are actually 3D printable replacement whole cases for this now. So there's a few people out there who've done a lot of cool mods. And I really, really say thanks to all the guys in the community doing that. But, you know, it's fun to keep these old things alive and really just kind of, you know, enjoy this stuff. And my son is pretty young, and I think, you know, he's going to grow up with some fun old stuff that most kids his age will, you know, probably never run into. But it's just part of the enjoyment of having this stuff. All right, well, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you another time.